from the Salvation Army National Headquarters, this is the Fight for Good podcast.
Well, hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Fight for Good podcast. I'm your host, Lieutenant Colonel Tim Foley, broadcasting from our studios here at the Salvation Army National Headquarters in Alexandria, Virginia. With me today is our War Cry editorial director, the illustrious, the one and only, the wise old owl, Jeff McDonald.
Should I hoot? Thank you, Colonel Foley. It's great to be with you, and we are networked and ready to go.
It's great to hear you, sir. Again, to our listeners, we are, I think, now month 6 or 7. I've lost track of how long we've been doing this remote, but we are recording our 54th episode today, under the great tutelage, and leadership, and amiable, dove-like person that she is, our producer, Elizabeth.
Hello, that was so kind of you.
Well, you know,
Gee whiz.
You can pay me a silver nickel tomorrow. It'll be all right. It's all
coming
true.
to you in the mail.
It's all true. Well, today is a very special podcast. I think we need to start coming up with a different phrase. What do you think? We could probably wordsmith something that would say something different than very special. What do you think?
Yeah.
How would you describe this particular episode, Jeff? How would you say? How would you do the intro?
I'd say an inside look at the humanity of the Salvation Army's international leaders.
Ooh.
Whoa.
Inside look. I think that the Peddles would like that. And we are so fortunate that we had the opportunity to interview General Brian and Commissioner Rosalie Peddle for our podcast. We had a wonderful time with them. In fact, we've made Elizabeth's job very difficult with this because we went way over our allotted time. The Peddles were very gracious in granting us our answers to our questions and other things that kind of came up in the discussion. So, Elizabeth, you've been able to whittle this down into two podcasts, correct?
2 wonderful episodes. I'm so excited about them.
I think the biggest thing our listeners would maybe get a chuckle out of was when we were trying to set this up. We use this software called Zencastr, and Zencastr is like one of many platforms that's out there, and we found this is affordable and works for us really well. But they're starting to come up with beta testing for video podcasting, and I guess when the general, correct me if I'm wrong, but when the general was trying to log in, they kept trying to log into the video side of things.
Yes, I think so. It kept prompting them to give them their information. They couldn't get the video to work.
And they were logging in, and we could hear them, but they couldn't hear us. And we're like in the queue to get the video testing. What are we? We're at 31,216 or something.
That's exactly correct. Yeah.
That's how many podcasters are before us. So we Elizabeth usually handles all of our technical stuff, and if we have any kind of problem, and so you put in the chat your phone number, and it was so cute because he called your number, and then what happened?
He said, "You're not Tim."
I love that. You're not Tim. So it was kind of fun. But Jeff, we just had a really good chat. I'm really excited about these 2 podcasts, and I think our listeners will get it. Will be really, really blessed by it.
I do. I mean, they're very conversational, the Peddles, and very down to earth, and yet they talk about so many interesting ideas and themes and experiences that I think would our listeners will enjoy, and also lead to further thought and possible publication ideas.
Well, Commissioner Rosalie Peddle is the World President of Women's Ministries, and General Brian Peddle is the 21st General of the Salvation Army. And they joined us from their location in London, England on a wonderful afternoon. And so we hope you enjoy our conversation with the Peddles. Well, we really thank both of you for taking some time out of your schedules. I know your schedule is kind of a unique thing. We're going to pry a little bit here. You were sharing a little bit of how COVID is affected the rhythm and routine at IHQ. So you were saying that today, the day that we're broadcasting, is on a Wednesday. It's a deep clean day at IHQ.
Yeah, our staff is slowly returning, and we have a COVID compliant building, but it means that we have to change significant behavior patterns. And one of those is about how we behave in the building. And we've decided to do our very best for our staff, which means they're only working limited times. But on Wednesday, middle of the week, we try and leave the building open. The cleaners just go at it with frenzy, and we call it Deep Clean Day. So we work from home that day, everybody, and deep clean our own places.
Okay, say deep cleaning home.
Yes, and that's not because, I mean, I've been to IHQ a few times. It's a pretty clean building. It's very, very spot. It's a beautiful building in a wonderful location in London. And I know you're blessed with that. But it's interesting because, as we have been covering the past 6 months, what COVID has meant to the work of the Salvation Army here in America, and also extended because of our interest in the worldwide work of the Salvation Army, there's a lot of pivoting that's having to go on, and I can't imagine what this time has been like for both of you. You had a pretty hectic travel schedule, and you were, scheduled out to speak at all kinds of different things. And now you're home on a Wednesday, and you're pretty much not going anywhere, we assume at this point?
That's correct.
Yes.
We walked away from IHQ on March 20. Very unaware of what the implications were at that time. And since then, we've not only seen our travel schedules suspended, we've seen our ministry amongst our team have to shift in the way that we relate together. And yet we have never seen a time in our leadership whereby our leadership is critical to the efficiency of the Army.
How have you kind of adjusted, like mentally and spiritually and even emotionally in this time?
It's been challenging. It's been challenging for us. When we walked away from IHQ, we could not even imagine we would have all this time. I think we thought, it's a short time. It's good to be home in London. We'll stay and do what we like to do and enjoy it. But it's been long. And it's been difficult for us in many ways. Emotionally, the fact that we can't travel, and also that we can't visit family. Restrictions for London. London became a ghost city, very quiet. It died actually, and is still slowly coming back to life. And again, it's been very challenging to be part of this. Never thought we would ever be into something like this, but
there are times when we think about COVID as an unfriendly interruption in things that were planned, anticipated, and we are not sure today how we will be able to recalibrate and recapture what we felt was, beautifully God-ordained planning and preparation and celebrations. I think about Nigeria, who is expecting us in a few weeks to come and help celebrate 100 years of the Salvation Army in that country. And, how do we bring that full circle and get that traction back, get that planning, get that sense of we can do this. So it's been disruptive. And if there are any silver linings in COVID, you really have to look for those, and they are there. But certainly we've felt we've missed some things, and we don't miss them without a real appreciation for the value of those things, the intersection of people and places, and embracing the Army, which is what we're hoping to be doing. So it is unusual. Our lives have switched, and we've become so online and so screen oriented, podcast oriented.
Yes. The Fight for Good podcast. Yeah.
Yes. So we are virtual almost every day doing something, and can't get to South America East to do the Congress, but we're sending greetings. We're sending a short message where, this is what's happening. We're not out to Bristol to do their 140th anniversary, but we've sent a Bristol message, So that's
very grateful for technology. Being able to connect that way. You still can't take away from being able to greet people and give them a hug and greet the Army in a personal way, but grateful we can have the opportunity to be able to share with them.
Somewhere in your question, Colonel, there was something around, what it's like to lead the Army during a time like this. We are absolutely continue to be, and maybe we were before COVID, amazed at the Army's, I'll use the word resilience, because the Army serves under hardship circumstances sometimes, because we're obviously intersecting people and communities at their deepest point of need. And I see the Army resilient in those instances. The other thing I'd want to give credit regarding is the courage of leaders, everybody from those at the command territorially all the way down to those who are leading corps and centers. And in that, the infrastructure that we have that holds that up is the incredible faithfulness of our people and our supporters. That hasn't changed during COVID, and we look out through windows of social media and YouTube, and we're just taken back by the way that our people are standing firm in these days.
Interesting, because the Army in the U.S., it's almost as if we're getting body blows one after the other with COVID, and now wildfires in California and hurricanes in the South. Yeah. And despite it all, the Army, its contributors, its supporters have come through to help. And those folks in the front lines, as you say, are doing courageous work. At the same time, now your worldview, you're seeing body blows on a world scale while we're looking at the U.S. And in your tweets, you talk about the need for change. And I've heard this time described as the gift of collective desperation. In other words, a time for reevaluating, regaging what we're doing. And you stress the idea that it is time for a change. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Oh, my goodness. If you want me to talk about change, we'll have to do part 2.
That's okay. I think our listeners would like that.
Yeah. Interesting to me, as an international leader, I have to admit, I'm followed by the aggressive and inevitable nature of change daily. Since I've become the international leader of the Salvation Army, I can't track for you the measures of change that I have observed, either in how we work, how we are more fluent with regard to technology, how we have changed systems of infrastructure, how we've embraced accountability, I guess change is ever present. What is it? We used to say the only constant thing about change is change itself. And I think what some of our listeners are looking for is this inevitable question of what's the Army going to be like after COVID? What will we have learned, and how do we debrief ourselves, and how do we pivot is the word of the day and become agile in a post-COVID reality. I hope and pray that every territorial leadership team is asking that question. I hope every Corps officer and center leader is asking that question. And perhaps not so much for an international leader to put a frame around that change and what it really needs to look like, but rather those people who are managing mission, they need to check to see that we're doing that in a world where relevance is particularly the key pivot point. I don't think there are any boundaries around people today when it comes to how do we get the job done. We are creative, we're entrepreneurial, we have people around us who can figure things out. Someone asked me a while ago about change, and I said, do you mean that we weren't doing well back in the old normal? And if that is the evaluation that, my goodness, we weren't fit for purpose in the old normal, then bring on change. Let us, surely if we're running a program that's reaped no results of kingdom growth, after we get through COVID, we're not going to go back and do that, are we?
No. I mean, that's really not the essence of salvationism. Thinking back to some of the writings of General Booth, obviously we know the famous quote, "That and better will do," but I'm always reminded of when he said, "If something's not working, stop it and do something else, and do something else." And this kind of, I think this, for me, this works into kind of like my own creativity and creative energy. Like, we've been challenged. We, like you, we walked away from our offices mid-March. I had a whole plethora of stuff the rest of the year that was just like wiped out. Our staff has yet all to be back together. A few of us are here, and all of that. But we've produced 6 issues of our magazines, of both Peer and War Cry. We've produced 1 Crest book, another book coming out, and 2 theological journals, all in quote unquote the basements of our staff. So it's like you just have to. The show's going to go on. Let's adapt with that. And so I think our listeners would take inspiration from your vision and your understanding, and vaulting us forward. Let's think about what is going to look like, because I've had people say to me, "Well, I just want it to return how it was," and it's not going to turn. It's not going to return.
And I think we have to be wise enough to filter out that which wasn't effective and productive. I believe that, look, we are not mega churches. We are a collection of relatively small groups of people that meet together for worship. That meeting together is a supreme source of what the body of Christ needs to look like in America and in other parts of the world. I love the phrase that there should be a church close enough that people can walk to. I like even better my take on that in the brokenness of the world today, we need churches close by that people can actually limp to. And what we've got going on there is this reality that the Salvation Army is about presence. And it is about people who know how to, in a broken moment, place that arm on a shoulder. I have visions of 9/11, which we just marked a few weeks ago, and some of the imagery that comes out of that setting, and now to the fires and our chaplains just, standing beside, standing with, and in this socially distanced COVID reality, I want to go back to where our presence was felt and known and the human touch was a reality. So, no, I'm not advocating we leave that behind. But if we were a part of things that consumed our energies, consumed our program time, consumed our finances, that didn't create that kind of outcome of heart and soul, that's what I want us to look at and say, we can do that better. And I do, as you say, want to look at if we can do stuff in our basements, why can't we do that? Likely more productively. Why can't the general be home on Wednesday for the rest of his life if he can get a better sermon for you when I come and visit?
Exactly. Well, the general and
But deep house cleaning, remember?
housekeeping is you got to create. Well, I mean, I'm an advocate for creating space anyways in your life because that's how, things kind of flow. But one of the things that I keep saying over and over to our staff and to other people that listen, I mean, these are some of the days that I am the most proudest to be a Salvation Army officer. There's just some, and you alluded to it earlier. There's a lot of courageous acts that are happening. A lot of self-sacrifice.
We're just collecting stories, and we're only catching glimpses. And of course, our window is quite a panoramic, global window. And some of the stuff that we are seeing, or the stories that are coming back to us, we have to say that these are the silver linings to COVID. It wouldn't have happened if COVID weren't affecting our lives the way that it is. So we celebrate what God is doing in the midst of trial and difficulty, which he's always done.
We're amazed here. I mean, we shouldn't be amazed, but it's amazing, how God is resourcing the Salvation Army, even in these unique times.
Yes, and also has prepared the International Salvation Army.
Yes.
I think your American listeners would understand that the Salvation Army operates on a helping basis. Like America is one of our key voluntary, generous funders to the International Salvation Army when we're opening new work, when we're trying to do projects in Africa or India or any other part of the world. It takes about 13, 14 of our very affluent territories to support those who are less able to carry the whole financial burden. So amazing how we do this. And at this particular point, the International Salvation Army continues to help without reservation every point of need that emerges around the world. So at this point in time, we are confident that we are doing really okay with the support of our donor territories. So that, shout out to the Americans and to the wonderful generosity that comes from the 4 territories, and particularly SASO as well.
Well, our SASO team is, as you know, it's right below us. It's on our 3rd floor here, and they're operating remotely, but they're working on all 8 cylinders.
It's the same with our international development department here. We created a COVID response team, and I can't tell you how many extra more projects we're doing, and the kind of stuff that we're doing is making sure people are fed, making sure people are able to wash their hands, where water is a very, very carefully owned thing. You don't go to a tap all the time. So we've created washing kits and sanitization kits and education programs. This is all being endorsed and quickly turned over and efficiently rolled out across the world. And Salvation Army is doing it well, and I'm very proud of all of our people.
Yeah, it makes me think when you early in your generalship, when you were in the U.S., you mentioned that there is some resistance in this world of ours to what Christianity is and represents, and that's a reality that we have to, be aware of. Yes. And certainly polls, et cetera, reveal that to a degree, as in Europe. But what would you say about the Army that makes it authentic in its expression of Christianity. You've touched on this already in your conversation, but I just thought I'd repeat that question.
Jeff, I can respond by being a little bit anecdotal if I could. See, it's hard to tell stories if you don't name and define realities. We all know that the Army serves in 131 countries, and not all of those countries are particularly friendly and pro-Army. Like, we don't have the public favor in some parts of the world like we do in the U.S. It's just not there. We're a minority in the Christian religion group. And yet, I can tell you stories about how government or municipal officials have come to the Army and said, we don't know what to do with these migrant workers. There are people who've been caught. We have no programs. If we gave you permits for your vehicles, because there's a ban on driving, if we gave you permits, could you help us feed these hundreds and thousands of migrants that can't get home, right? So I say, hands up to that, and off we go. We look at our hospitals, and people forget we have nearly 100 medical expressions around the world. And when you look to Indonesia, where they've already had more tragedy than you care to think about, and you look at India, where we have quite a number of hospitals, and again, governments are coming to us and saying, can you be a COVID hospital in this particular area? So we're into situations where we have people, government officials, who want to turn their head a little bit because we're a religious organization, who are recognizing that our place in the community is a place of helping. And all of a sudden we have new opportunities. COVID is giving the Salvation Army new opportunities never before dreamed of.
Commissioner, we have been following with great interest and trying to report the best that we can some of the things that have been coming out of your office.
Yes.
We're excited. Could you tell us a little bit? We'll kind of pop out of the COVID thing here and just tell us a little bit about the dreams and some of the dreams that are becoming reality within women's ministries worldwide.
Sure. Well, it's all part of the change. You talked about the change of the Army, of doing things differently, and I think that's where this vision has come for me. I've been in the chair of women's ministries for a number of years. I have to say, first of all, that women's ministries internationally is very strong. We are a strong part of the International Salvation Army, and in some of the countries, and I speak from the chair. And I'm seeing the International Army. In some countries, if women's ministries didn't exist, we would have a very small Salvation Army there. And so I'm very, very pleased that we were able to be strong and we are able to meet the needs of women around the world. But this vision for our 21st century of the reimagining of women's ministries, I've charged the International Salvation Army to reimagine our women's ministries. One of the things that have come to my attention has been young girls and the great needs and challenges for our young girls. And I want us in women's ministry to broaden our vision. So I'm asking them to look at what we can do as we move forward for the young girls around the world. Incredible challenges for them, and who is really paying attention to them. We as women can do great things to help them, to influence them, to encourage them, to champion them, to challenge them. So that's one of the areas we've moved into. And of course, there are many challenges, social injustice in our world for women, and they're overwhelming. And so part of my vision moving forward was to engage the women that are connected with the Salvation Army into this fight for social justice. Now we are doing it in many ways, but I want to really emphasize the importance of doing it better for the future, for women and for girls. And so we've launched it from international headquarters, and we did it in February, which was absolutely incredible. not seeing the COVID-19 coming, we launched this and had a great celebration. And now, since the COVID, we have been incredibly impressed by what we see happening as women are engaged and looking out for the needs of each other around the world and moving into all areas within the Army. They're partnering with so many other social agencies to help meet the needs of the women. I said on that morning that we launched our women's ministry I don't want us to be confined by our celebrated history or traditions, or any belief that women's ministry must fit a specific format or look a certain way. We've done it over the years. We've got to move out of our comfort zone. So I'm calling the women and men to look around your communities, to see what's not working, that, again, no outcomes, and to see what needs to be done, and then move out there and do something, and with love and compassion, help meet the needs of our women. I do believe that this pandemic has indeed increased our needs and challenges amongst women. And I think as we continue to come out of this pandemic, we will see that there's lots of work for us to do. So be creative, open your eyes. What more can we do and meet the needs of women around our world? And I'm quite excited, but I think the future of the International Women's Ministries is bright and exciting. So I'm waiting to see what God is going to do for us.
I must say, those stories coming out of the women's ministry are amazing. What you are helping women do in terms of self-sufficiency and being leaders in their communities through microcredit, et cetera. The general talked about resilience earlier, and certainly these women are demonstrating resilience. And it's a marvelous thing, and the Army is crossing boundaries. And I think of those women fighting those cultural boundaries and overcoming them. So it's just great. It's great work.
Yeah. We're very proud of what's happening and looking forward to even greater things into the future.
Jeff, you probably would know this, but the Salvation Army is kind of out of balance numerically, where we have more women involved in our Salvation Army at literally every level that you could possibly think of. In our officer contingency, in our soldier contingency, in our membership, even down to volunteers. Women lead and have influence. And I'm not certain, and I'm speaking now as general and as a male leader, we've given due credit to the backbone of this thing that we call Salvation Army. So I want to give a shout out to all the ladies who might be listening. I am very mindful of the place that you take, and I am committed to, with Rosalie, making sure that that's not only encouraged and developed, but also recognized.
We've had great feedback from around the world with this whole idea that we can look around and we can see new things. It's a day of doing new things. And let's see what we can do through the help of God in reaching out to people that are in great need. And we can do that. We can do that well.
Well, that was our first half of our interview with General and Commissioner Peddle. Jeff, there's a lot more to come in the second portion, which would be episode number 56. What were a couple of quick impressions you had of our time with the Peddles?
Well, General Peddle discussed his role as a leader and how he influences leaders and influencers. And he respects what the Army is doing around the world and has so many stories that he's been privy to about what the Army is doing in unique ways around the globe to address human need. And then Commissioner Peddle discussed what the importance of women in the Salvation Army and how women are helping change the world, and how reimagining women's ministries is helping to promote that change. And then they talk about their love of children and the topics facing the Army that the Army is wrestling with. So there's a lot of rich conversation that we had.
So we hope you'll join us for the second part of this podcast coming up shortly. Well, that's going to end this episode of the Fight for Good podcast. Be sure to subscribe to Fight for Good wherever you listen to your podcasts. And don't forget to follow us at the War Cry and Peer Magazine. War Cry, our web spot is www.thewarcry.org, and Peer Magazine is peermag.org. Lots of good stuff on both those websites that are not in the printed version. And for those of you that may not subscribe to the magazines, there's information there for you to subscribe as well. You can also follow us. We're very active on Facebook, on Instagram, Twitter, and even with Pinterest. Yes, Pinterest. So that's great. So check us out there. Well, until next time, this has been the Fight for Good podcast. Bye for now.
Subscribe to Fight for Good wherever you listen to podcasts.